We've had some really cheeky people on the show, but I think for cheek, no one out-cheeks BJ Mendelson. BJ Mendelson, or at BJ Mendelson, has 700,000 followers on Twitter. Very cool. He's a master of social media. But today, BJ Mendelson is coming out with a book, and it's called Social Media is Bullshit. So BJ Mendelson has 700,000 Twitter followers, and this is what he's telling them. Social media is bullshit. BJ, welcome to TechCrunch TV.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Before we start, BJ, tell me what that stands for, because, of course, some people with dirty minds will think will make assumptions. I'm assuming it doesn't mean that, right?
No. Although, I am doing a new experiment, and so it might come in handy if it did mean that. But no, right now it's Brandon Jarrett.
Well, don't say this on TechCrunch, because we don't have any female viewers, so it'll be all men, so you don't want to talk in those terms. So what does BJ stand for?
Brandon Jarrett.
Okay, but you want me to call you BJ?
Yes, please.
So BJ, social media is bullshit, but you've got 700,000 Twitter followers?
That's right. Now,
square the circle for me. What's going on?
The important question to ask is how I got those followers, because I didn't earn them.
Are they real? Did you pay for them?
They are quite real. About 70% of them are real, based on that new tool that came out a couple of weeks ago that determines whether or not they're fake. Now, I got those from Twitter. Let's call them Twitter for the rest of the interview. Can we do that?
Everyone's tittering now. So you've got 700,000 Twitter followers.
There you go. So Twitter, back in 2009, I was working on a project. I like to get immersive into things. I like to actually do them and then write about it as I'm experiencing it for the first time, which is actually why I'm here at SUNY Potsdam. But back in 2009, I was traveling across America to promote the early detection, prevention of breast cancer. Now, back in 2007, Twitter used to have, we're going to call them Twitter, I'm going to remember, Twitter used to have a public timeline where they would just kind of have everyone's tweets all in one place, and then they would have off to the side different profiles. So, for example, Agent M at Marvel has been promoted by Twitter Corporate for years now, and I was actually one of those accounts too that was originally featured back in 2007. In 2009, I was kind of like, hey, you guys have featured my account before. I'm doing this breast cancer tour. We're saying check early, check often. We're traveling to colleges across America. Can you promote the account? And I wound up being the only non-celebrity, non-brand, non-media outlet on the old suggested user list, which is where all those followers came from.
But why have you written this book, BJ? I mean, they did you a favor, you presumably to promote to promote research into cancer, and this is the way you're paying back the guys at Twitter?
The people at Twitter, my big thing when social media is bullshit, I'm really speaking to the myth created by the marketers, because right now we have plenty of tools out there. Some are good. Twitter is one of those good ones. I write jokes on Twitter. That's why I do there all day. Facebook, not so much, but they're all different, and it really depends on the context and the audience and what you're trying to do with them. So when I say social media is bullshit, I'm not so much talking about the tools as much as I'm talking about the myth. And the myth is that all you need to do is get 700,000 Twitter followers, or just post on Facebook 20 times a day, and then you'll become rich and famous beyond your wildest dreams. Turns out that's not really the case.
So this book, Social Media, let me put it in front of the screen, Social Media is Bullshit. Well, this is your answer to the social media evangelists, the Brian Solaces of the world?
Yes, and I speak quite at length about Mr. Solis and his social media manifesto, Engage or Die, as he said, although he's since gone on to say he's not a social media expert, so you'll have to explain that one today. But yes, the Robert Scobles, the Brian Solises, the Chris Brogans, Lawrence Lessig, all those guys who go out there and talk about how wonderful the internet is and all the great change that's come about. And yes, there are some wonderful things that have come from the internet. No one is going to dispute that. However, what is disputed is the hype, the myth, the thing that they peddle to sell more books, to get more speaking engagements, to get out there and make themselves more money, because that's what it's all about, is keeping them rich while keeping the rest of us broke and clueless.
So what are you saying in the book that's really original? Trust me, I'm lying. I wrote a book called Digital Vertigo. We're all kind of saying the same thing. Why should people read Social Media is Bullshit? What's original about what you're saying?
Sure. The key difference, trust me, I'm lying. Ryan went. He's a
And
great.
Ryan's been on the show, and I just spent last week with him in Brazil. He's a great guy.
That's awesome. I've never left, barely left the country, so I don't really count Canada as a country. So you'll have to forgive me. The key difference, though, is that I've tried all of these different platforms as they've rolled out. I've tried all of the advice, all of the strategies, all of the tips. I've lived it. I've spent the money. I've spent the years trying these ideas and failing horribly. And so that's the key difference, is because when I read your book, I thought it was more like an intellectual discussion about what these things really mean, and are we alone, and what does that mean for society? And that's a great discussion to have. I'm not a marketer, though. I'm just a guy, I'm a funny guy who wanted to make it big and wanted to be a stand-up comedian and wanted to get his jokes out there and get his videos out there, and found these tools and strategies were so overhyped that by the end of the experiment, by the end of the project, I was broke and penniless, and I was no better off than I was before I started using them.
So you had to go back to grad school, right?
That's part of the reason why I'm here. I'm actually here.
Didn't St. Martin's pay you anything for this piece of shit?
They gave me something.
Oh, good. I hope they gave you more than they gave me. So what you're saying then, BJ, is that you can get 700,000 followers on Twitter, and it's actually useless in terms of promoting yourself.
That is exactly what I'm saying. They don't click on anything, and it's not just me that says that. Let me be clear. There are many people who are on the old suggested user list. Michael Ian Black is mentioned in the book. JetBlue was on there. Dell, which I went at length about their bias considering the suggested user list. There are plenty of people with large followers who will tell you they don't click on anything. They don't come out in person to meet you. They don't really do anything beyond the platform. And so it might be cool to have that many people following you on the platform, but if it doesn't translate into anything, what's really the point?
So are you then suggesting that Twitter, as you call it,
That's right,
probably doesn't have a great future in terms of a business? Because if it doesn't have any value ultimately for people, they'll stop using it.
Here's the problem that Twitter has. They had their moment in the sun. 2008 to 2009, February to February, when they had that big explosion in page views and unique visitors, that was their moment. And what's happened since then is that it's mostly a toy for comedians and journalists. And that's why when you see something said on Twitter suddenly showing up in the news, it's not because a lot of people are talking about it. It's because a lot of journalists are talking about it. And they're like, oh, well, it must be news because we're journalists.
So you're saying that, and this is my headline, so you have to agree with this, Twitter is a graveyard?
Yes.
Because Scoble famously, I think he said that, and he suggests that Google Plus isn't. But it's not just Twitter, is it? It's Google Plus, it's Facebook, it's all these networks.
I just want to throw out something about Robert Scoble real quick. It got cut from the book.
And make it rude, because
there is a list. There's a list that I sent it to dogandponyshow.com, and I believe that they will have it up this week, where it's a list of everything that Robert Scoble has ever been wrong about, and it is quite extensive. I'm very proud of it. It came from
But in defense of Robert, he's a lovely guy. He's a warm guy, and if he was on this show, he wouldn't probably deny it. And he's been right about. I mean, he talks all the time, so he's been right about some things too.
I'm not talking about the man. I'm talking about the proclamations, and that's.
So BJ, let's be a little bit fairer here about social media. You're saying it's bullshit. Does it have to be bullshit? Is it inevitably bullshit, or do we need some changes, some structural changes, some new companies, new ways of playing in this field? What needs to change?
The big thing is we need to be honest. Google can't come out and say stuff like, oh, well, the engagement is up and we have tons of users over at Google+. It's not true, not even close to being true. And yet they keep peddling it out because the journalists pick it up and go, okay, well, that sounds like a good story. We need to get past the hype. Because the tools are fine. I'm not big on Facebook. I think Facebook sucks. And I think they had their moment to have a good business model back when it was just college students. And once they opened it up, that was it. And that's true for a lot of these platforms. But the thing that needs to change is we need to go, it's different for everybody. What's true for me on Twitter is not going to be true for you. It's a totally different experience based on your needs and your audience. And that's the thing that we need to do. We need to say, it's not a cure-all. It is what it is for each person, and that's how we have to approach these things. It's different per person, not like these huge millions of dollars.
But that's, I don't get that. So what? That's obvious. It's true for anything.
It's important, though. It's important because the people that get hurt with these myths are small businesses, artists, entrepreneurs. They're the ones that suffer when these myths get created. They're the ones that get hurt when the media talks
But
about
that's
all
always true. I mean, the people who got
of
hurt with Facebook are the small
or
investors. I mean, from my point of view, and I'm not really a big defender of social media, but Twitter, as you call it, has been very, very helpful for me as a writer and a broadcaster, as a way of getting people to watch this show, as a way of meeting interesting people, of getting speeches. You can't deny that.
It's different for everybody, though. You've already had a well-established presence, and that's the thing. Let me be clear about this. If you have some kind of celebrity, and what kind of celebrity, it really depends. You know, it could be a web celebrity, it could be a real celebrity. As long as you've already got that kind of built-in audience, these tools are awesome. But if you're like me, and you're like millions of people out there, small businesses, artists, entrepreneurs who don't have that built-in audience, these tools are useless.
But some people might say, well, BJ, you blow, to use a polite term. That you failed. You got 700,000 followers, and you don't have any talent, so it didn't help you.
Well, it's true I don't have much talent, but the thing I do have is research. And what people will find in looking at social media is bullshit is that it's quite comprehensive in terms of the footnotes. There are years of research that went into it. There are many interviews. And it's not just me. It's lots and lots of people who all have the same story. I tried these platforms. I failed. What's going on here?
But since we're talking about feces, what about shit my dad said? That's talented. That guy got a book contract. That guy has a huge following.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because we talk about that at length in the book. Justin Halpern is a funny, funny man. Anything I say here, it's not meant to take away from him at all. Let's be clear about that. So, fake Michael Bay comes along, sends out a link, and that's what really started to get the ball rolling with shit my dad says. Before that, no one was following it. Fake Michael Bay goes and tweets it. Rob Corddry, who is a follower of Fake Michael Bay, goes, oh, this is really funny. Rob Corddry's a real celebrity. Remember, if you're a real celebrity, these tools are awesome. If you're not, though, you're screwed. So Rob Corddry gets behind it, Kristen Bell gets behind it, and then it starts to snowball out to Dig, back when that meant something. Dig now, not so much. And that's how it spread. It didn't just happen because he was a funny guy. If those two things didn't happen, we wouldn't be talking about Justin Halpern.
Finally, BJ, let's say you have talent, and I think you do. I've enjoyed the book, and I've enjoyed this interview. For other people out there like you with talent, but without a brand name, what's the best way in our digital-centric world to build a career as a comedian, a writer, a filmmaker, a musician, if it's not on social media?
I'm glad you asked that. It sounds counterintuitive, but go offline. That's what it is. Go offline, make a lot of friends, work in your town, work in your community, and slowly spread out. That's the way to do it. It's been that way before the internet. It'll be that way after the internet.
Well, on that, I'm going to shut you down. I'm going to force you to go back to real life. BJ Mendelson, the author of Social Media is Bullshit, at BJ Mendelson, with his 700,000 Twitter followers. Finally, BJ, what I'm guessing is of those 700,000 followers, probably what? 7 will buy your book if your message is true? Well, for those 7, you're going to enjoy the book. BJ Mendelson, best of luck with the book. It's out today. Very, very engaging, interesting, provocative read. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. It's in my hands here.